Hello, this is Ammar. Welcome back to All Things Money after a long hiatus. So, we're now going to talk about privatization today. What is privatization? Why do we keep talking about it? And when will it eventually end? So, essentially, we need to go back in history a bit. In the early 70s, we went through a process of nationalization in which essentially a lot of private assets, a lot of big private companies were nationalized and taken over by the government of Pakistan.
I had made a pledge to the people of Pakistan to implement important industrial reforms in the country. I am now beginning to redeem this pledge. As from today, the control and command of the people over the following categories of industries have been asserted.
The government of Pakistan tried running those assets, tried running those companies, but in a few years or in a few decades, they were not able to do so, and then they failed. Eventually, in the early 90s, we started the privatization process, where we privatized a few banks, and then later in the early 2000s, we further pushed on the privatization process, privatized more banks, a few entities here and there, and then finally, we are in 2024. One of the key entities which has never been able to we haven't been able to privatize, essentially PIA. PIA over the last 10 years has been suffering significant losses, so much so its current debt is in excess of 700 billion rupees. It has losses in the range of 50 billion rupees annually. So as long as essentially the PIA continues to operate as a national airline with majority shareholding of the government of Pakistan, the shareholders, or the taxpayers would continue to foot the bill for PIA. So why? What essentially went wrong with PIA? What went wrong is the cost of PIA continued to escalate. The service standards kept going down. More importantly, the whole aviation market significantly changed over the last 2 decades. The market essentially more on the lines of budget travel. You've got a lot of airline companies which essentially have offer budget routes, smaller routes. PIA wasn't able to compete in that. It had a few long-haul routes, core routes, but a lot of airlines from the GCC, from the Middle East, essentially took over those routes as well because they were more efficient in doing so. So slowly and steadily, PIA lost whatever luster it has, whatever demand it has. Even then, PIA's long-haul flights currently are completely packed, clearly demonstrating that significant demand does exist. So what do we need to do? Essentially, the government has a restructuring plan for PIA in place. For that, they've created a new company. It's called the PIA Holding Company. What they're doing is essentially moving all of PIA's debt and other key real estate assets onto that company, and the core operating assets of PIA will be sold in the privatization process. But why has it taken so long? Well, one of the reasons is more political than anything else. A lot of people are employed by PIA. A lot of political people are employed by PIA. A lot of employment was done on the basis of political patronage, so on and so forth. And because of that, it's difficult to essentially privatize PIA. A restructuring plan is already in place. That would also include some kind of a golden handshake scheme for its employees as well. And slowly and steadily, once the privatization process completes, we may see a complete turnaround of PIA over the next few quarters or over the next few years. It is important to note that a lot of countries in the world have essentially moved on to this model where the sovereign actually used to control the airline. Slowly and steadily, it moved away from its role, and you've got private management, private shareholders actually controlling it and making better decisions in the process. So this is what we're doing with PIA. We are essentially privatizing it. We will essentially ensure it just becomes more efficient and hopefully recapture all of the routes and all of the traffic volume it lost over the last few years. It's important to note here that in terms of efficiency, PIA fares fairly bad in terms of number of people employed per plane or the number of costs per plane. So once it's privatized, once it focuses more on efficiency, it is entirely possible that we see a more renewed and profitable PIA following privatization. But how will that help the eventual customer? Well, we have seen in a lot of different markets, in a deregulated aviation market, the prices of tickets actually go down. So for example, right now, something like from Lahore to Karachi or Karachi to Lahore would cost you around $200 return. The same distance in India or in the European Union would barely cost you $100. So once there is more competition, once there are more airlines competing for the same pie, or eventually prices are going to go down, and as prices go down, we will have more people traveling. So this is overall a good thing in the larger, I would say, aviation commerce scheme of things. And once the privatization goes through, we may see, the consumer may see more options and better and more affordable options out there. More importantly, the taxpayer will stop footing the bill, essentially giving us some fiscal space to reallocate those funds towards more priority sectors such as education or healthcare. This is it for all things money for this time around. See you soon.